Prova 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Prova. Prova 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Tranquillo. Ok, arriva. It's ok. Prova 1, 2, 3. Prova 1, 2, 3. Prova. Prova 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Prova il microfono. Prova 1, 2, 3. It's okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. 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 Testing 1, 2, 3.
reti neurali avversarie, cioè una rete neurale che genera un'immagine e un'altra rete neurale che confrontandosi con l'originale, un'immagine vera, dice no, questa non è realistica. Allora l'altra rete la rigenera e quell'altra dice no, non è realistica, perché la seconda rete non riesce a distinguere tra un'originale e una sintetica. E quando è ottimizzata questa pipeline, tu puoi generare milioni di immagini in mezz'ora, che ovviamente non hanno necessariamente più valore informativo dell'originale, però hanno due caratteristiche, che sono completamente privacy preserving, cioè l'immagine sintetica non c'è niente, non c'è proprio il dato originale, nell'immagine sintetica non c'è mai stato il dato originale, perché sta generato da un algoritmo. Comunque, esatto, mi lasciate su marciapiede e sei completamente puntuale. E in più appunto c'è questo fatto che se sono immagini, perché i dati sintetici puoi fare qualsiasi cosa, ma se sono immagini le puoi fare preannotate, perché l'algoritmo che poi deve fare il processing, cioè non ci deve stare il radiologo lì con la penna a fare l'annotazione manuale della lesione. E comunque insomma questi fanno parte di My Half My Day, perché ci sono ce ne sono tanti, perché noi abbiamo provato a un certo punto anche a fare volte a fare una proposta un po' più di tipo business, perché ci sono un paio di società in America e una in Austria che stanno entrando nel mercato con quel servizio lì, perché ovviamente quello che vuole sviluppare l'algoritmo applicati di server. Poi ci sono ulteriori algoritmi, diciamo, di quality control che tu puoi mettere, che sostanzialmente fanno un'analisi retrograda del peso di ogni variabile nel processo generativo, quindi ti danno anche un assessment della qualità dell'immagine sintetica del processo. Ma c'è molto che è un campo molto interessante. Comunque stiamo entrando con la lettura.
Quella produce quanto immagini vuoi, però c'è un unico costruttore, c'è un processo che tu apri l'algoritmo, c'è giga, tanto che per fare la pratica giga ci sono pochi secondi, magari tieni
c'è un gruppo con cui lavoriamo molto noi, che prima era appunto la Barbara, e loro fanno radionica e fanno quel tipo di approccio là, vanno per dei segnali grezzi e poi fanno un cross matching con la genetici per fare predittività. sembra la cosa più semplice.
Comunque no, Siemens per esempio sta lavorando
Siamo solo in tre, giusto? Quindi questo
oppure vuoi fare un'immagine super resolution sì, diciamo con l'algoritmo si fai esplodere quasi tutte le informazioni come risoluzione spaziale
è la stessa cosa sulla data.
un po' più particolare perché il controllo degli artefatti infatti anch'io soprattutto sai per cosa? Già le radiazioni sono basse ma tu così potresti azzerare
Esatto.
adesso quasi azzerare
Cioè fai un passaggio
passaggio ma proprio al minimo e poi amplifichi quelle che sono le informazioni con l'algoritmo.
però, cioè quindi lì ci sarebbe da fare tutto il mapping clinico, cioè perché l'algoritmo di machine learning prova X, no? Per qualsiasi cosa X.
Sì, devi partire da un algoritmo.
Però
Sì,
da giorno ad oggi nessuno sa clinicamente cosa sia.
esatto, il problema della tanta è che una cosa verticale o con i test clinici di partire con questo primo specifico, per esempio loro lo fanno. Quello che ho visto io è fuori con un benissimo quindi si muove in questo senso. Loro hanno preso il rifolato che funziona. Poi hanno preso il rifolato per fuori in asse lungo funziona uguale. Però si chiama questo è stato un esperimento facile. Allora se tu vuoi la data del tumore sulla polmonare
Perché poi su certe cose puoi usare diciamo, l'immagine ricostruita come Armenia per non ricostruita, il machine learning mi ha dato un segnale che possono mappare l'immagine ricostruita all'immagine del mondo.
esatto.
Però su certe cose lo puoi fare, però in realtà il bello è quello che l'immagine ricostruita in realtà non ti sta più facendo vedere, capire qual è il significato clinico del segnale che arriva dal dato preso. E però per quello devi fare lo studio clinico per forza.
Sì, dovresti diciamo, elaborarlo per una cosa fatta a vertice non completi il puzzle infatti per quello è ancora una sfida, ancora in deve essere
Però sai, in realtà non è difficile farlo perché tu lo puoi fare in maniera prospettica, non si fa grande clinical trial. Di ogni paziente che passa fai quella ricostruita classica in quella al dato e poi vedi clinicamente dove va la persona.
assolutamente.
Francesca, devi venire qui, devi stare
Alla destra
Come volete, io mi metto. Whenever you want, whenever.
Sono un posto.
Quando accendo le luci solito
Ok. Quindi aspettiamo le luci. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of the innovation meeting of the Bambino Gesù Hospital. Today we will have a special edition in connection with AIMed conference. AIMed is a special conference about artificial intelligence in medicine. This conference will have an edition in London next September, and we are very glad to host this panel, which is actually a talk about the problems and the opportunities that artificial intelligence could bring to clinicians in view of a larger discussion. I must tell you that AIMED is actually a group of conferences, so London is just one of the editions. The big conference is in California and will be in December, if I remember correctly. It's a great conference, and anybody interested in actually registering, I strongly recommend that you make some thought to go to California, because the 3-4 days in that conference are really, really inspiring, I would say. And AIMED has also brought the information about the applications of artificial intelligence in medicine in different specialties. They're making a roadshow all over the world. So we're very glad to connect with this activity. And today we will talk about a couple of problems. I have with me Francesca Iodice and Aurelio Cecinario for trying to discuss of the problems and the opportunities we have in the application of artificial intelligence technologies in the clinic. So, my name is Alberto Tozzi. I'm serving this hospital, Bambino Gesù, as Chief Innovation Officer. And we will be also organizing a conference on innovation in pediatrics that will be held in October, 2 to 4 October in Rome. We will follow with some information about that conference, and we will be glad to connect also for that reason with the audience and the rest of people interested in that. So let's start the discussion. I will start with Francesca. Francesca works in a very challenging ward, which is intensive care unit. And one of the first questions that I would make is, what do you feel might be the big opportunities that an intensivist may find out with the application of artificial intelligence technologies in your clinical routine? Introduce yourself.
Hello,
and then
everybody. I'm Francesca. I work in the cardiac intensive care unit at this hospital. It's a big cardiac intensive care unit post-op, and we get emergencies from the whole country. And we also do a lot of ventricular assist devices, bridging the patients to transplant. Well, what do I think? Artificial intelligence, first of all, the intensive care unit is a place full of information, and sometimes it's information that is lost, because even though we have a computerized system, we don't collect all the data, and the data is immense because the patients are constantly being monitored, and all their vital signs are monitored, starting from the brain to the heart to the ventilation. So I think that's probably the main use. I would say that's the first point of artificial intelligence in the intensive care unit. Then I think that artificial intelligence can develop further in the intensive care unit. It has more than one role, but I would say this is probably the first. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think this is the first priority at the moment.
Absolutely, I agree. This is not only for intensive care. Let me also make the same question to Aurelio. Aurelio is a radiologist and is very much interested and focused on the application of this kind of technologies to diagnostic images. Aurelio, introduce yourself and opportunities about radiology.
Thanks, Alberto. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for this kind invitation. I'm a radiologist, as you said. I'm working into the Department of Imaging, Bioimaging, and my main task is to look after the scans of the cardiothoracic area. So I'm working closely with Francesca most of the times, because of some of the sick patients are doing MRI, CT, and of course we are strictly involved, and we probably from radiology point of view, we're more, the radiological setting has been since the beginning involved into the, not AI, let's say, but into the computer work. So most of the computer stuff of the hospitals has been started in the radiology department, and then moved and expanded into the rest of the hospitals. Some of the RIS system, so the reporting system, is something based on the radiology area. So we are the nerds of the hospital, and then therefore we start being very good in collecting information. However, there are some issues, and I mean, there are some very interesting applications. I think one of the limits of the radiology world was the semantic aspect. So we tend to write and describe and you know, like poetry, like poems, our findings, which is something very sometimes very fascinating, but not necessarily useful. And I think it's important to try to get out of this concept of collecting the data, recognizing the findings, and becoming more and more consistent. And I think AI is in the pipeline. I mean, it's still there. It's already there to support this from this point of view.
Speaking about these applications, and especially about the semantic challenges, do you use natural language processing techniques already to try to get out the standardized information from the reports and kind of text things and things like that?
That's absolutely true. So the future will be this interactive reporting. I mean, the retrospective data, so the legacy data could be nowadays easily extracted by a data mining process. And even though the semantics is different between any sentence, so any sentence inside as an intra-center way of describing things can be very various. So there are, this is very difficult from a computer point of view, but it can definitely be feasible. Of course, it needs to be, and some of the new reporting system are based on this way, so they sort of recognize the sentence, and they are able to extract the data and collect simultaneously the data, and based on how you describe and learn from the way you describe. So each doctor has got different way to say, and automatically the new reporting system are based on recognizing and automatically fill tables and variables according to what you describe. So the interactive reporting is the future of this field.
And let me say that actually NLP and natural language processing techniques are very useful to extract information from other things like this. For example, children coming to the emergency room, or even when they are discharged, they usually have a description of what's happening in the clinic. And actually this is a descriptive report, which is narrative completely. And standardizing the information inside this report is really challenging. But possibly natural language processing may make the difference. What about the intensive care? Can you feel like there are specific applications that you already have in intensive care, or something that you can forecast will be available in the future for facilitating the clinical work, the routine work? I mean, everybody thinks that the magic word in artificial intelligence will be prediction. Is that right? And this is something that is really feasible for intensive care?
I think so. I think that in intensive care, since it is a high impact environment and where it's important to be able to predict before something terrible happens, I think that the development of algorithms could be fundamental. I mean, we've seen that some colleagues of ours have developed algorithms to predict in cardiac arrest in patients, in specific patients with single ventricles. And I've also seen some other colleagues have predicted mechanical ventilation, intubation. I think in the future what could be very useful is the prediction of, is using artificial intelligence with our VAD patients, especially in this setting, which is for us, I mean, one of our specialties, I would say.
I would make a bad question, because actually the predicting is magic, and it's something that we always trying to do. Do you think we have enough evidence that this kind of methods will be useful and will be really predicting something? In other words, how to validate this kind of processes? Because this is something we have in our hands. The problem is how can we trust the process and how to avoid that we have false alarms?
No, I think we need multi-center trials. I think we need more centers, and also because I think the algorithms need to be tailor-made to each department and to the needs of each department. I don't think that you can apply one single algorithm to different departments. So I think they need to be tailor-made. I think this is fundamental.
And this is very interesting, and this is why this is your feeling, because we are using different procedures, different protocols, or we
because
have
patients are different in every
That's
place
fine.
you go. So patients are going to be
But
different.
you're saying that places are different.
Places are different and patients are different and people are different. So I think that you need to use artificial intelligence based on what your needs are. And I think that's the key.
That's very interesting, absolutely. One other question was, I know that you're trying to start a project about the monitoring of patients in intensive care unit for connecting different devices and understanding what's going on and possibly predicting severe events and other things. Can you tell something about this project?
Well, it's still beginning. I mean, basically, I was in Texas last year, and I'm working with colleagues that are doing cerebral autoregulation. So they basically monitor the brain according to blood pressure variations, and they're using artificial intelligence to do this. And since in the cardiac patients, neurological injury is an important morbidity, I would say that this field has become of interest. So, and basically we are trying to import their, let's say, know-how, knowledge to our intensive care unit. So this is basically the project that we're trying to start up. It's still in the beginning. Hopefully we'll succeed. But basically this is the idea. And their technology that they use is not used exclusively for cerebral autoregulation, but they also have developed this artificial intelligence that allows you also to monitor other variables, vital signs, and also develop algorithms that predict cardiac arrest or extubation and things like that.
Hopefully this will be beneficial for patients, obviously, and this is one of the things that we are trying to understand if this really works or it's something that we should refine and so on. Let me go back to Aurelio, because, you know, we always challenge Aurelio because he is part of a fantastic team trying to make virtualization of models in complex surgery cases and other things. And the world of diagnostic images is really, really fascinating because you work with pictures, simply. And actually, pictures may become 3D models or may also give you the feeling of being exactly inside the operating room or whatever, or inside a body. And this is one of the things that we usually ask the radiologists to make for preparing complex surgery interventions and other things. But are there other applications that you're currently using for artificial intelligence? Is the NLP for standardization of reports the only thing that you're doing, or what are you following other projects for the application of these techniques?
Absolutely. So there are other projects on the pipeline. So that there's first of all, we are currently clinically using some tools that are based on a process of deep learning and machine learning. So an AI process of standardization. I mean, the easiest and the commonest one is the bone expert. I don't know if you heard about it. I can show you some of the pictures if you want. But basically, the bone expert is basically a system that is so the bone age. It can be just go very quickly to the slide. Then we can go back to some of them if you want. Okay, it blocks. So it can be used very easily, and now is very very good in working from this point of view. Is the sorry, there are lots of stuff before. Oh, where is it? Sorry. Okay, it is. So this basically is recognizing automatically, based on an algorithm, of course, of an image-based algorithm first, but then is able to recognize the bone age and classifying the this is a routing stuff in radiology. So I think this is exactly what is AI for me. So I don't want to waste time in stupid things. So that is the machine. To me, the computer is a very fast, stupid thing, but very fast. So I need you to be faster and quicker, and then these give me numbers instead of going and check and compare the images with others from the book. So this is exactly an example of how it should be. So for me, is the machine learning. So I don't want to waste time doing stupid things. And this is actually working pretty well, and is applying two different methods of segmenting the bone and giving the bone age very easily and immediately after the few seconds after the image is done. So that is a very easy application. But then there are others that I'm using. So this is from colleagues from Peterson from London is working with us in the MHMD project. Is they developed so we know that the cardiac imaging is based on a very boring contouring of ventricles in the different phase of the cardiac cycle to get these numbers from ejection fraction and so on. But they made a sort of fully convolutional network system that was going back and forth to get the errors and the mistakes. And so they had a big data bank. So they processed and they trained the algorithm. And this is the result. So they made a consistent segmentation of the ventricles from human 20 minutes to few seconds. And this is how it works. So we tried in our hospital. I don't know if the movie starts. I'll show you. But anyway, so basically it's very few seconds. You get very no, it's not running. But anyway, you in few seconds you can get the segmentation of the ventricles, and you get very consistent results. Like if you imagine this into the clinical practice, so you are able to segment a clinical cardiac MRI that is taking 1 to 2 hours of segmentation and reporting time to few seconds of segmentation, and then you will be able to have more and more time to concentrate on the clinical case. So I think at the moment those two are the main tools how we are using.
I'm so glad, because everybody expert or having a background in pediatrics can remember in the very old years how long it was taking to make a bone age with a book and trying to go through all the pages, because actually trying to compare the radiology with the picture in the book, that was one of the first things that I learned. That was pretty interesting, because actually if you're an expert you can go very fast, but never go into seconds for getting the results. It's exactly what I think.
The TW system, you know that, is madness.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are talking about that because I had also a teacher, a professor that was coming from London, and you know that was the background, and they're very picky about the calculation of bone age and things like that. Okay, that's pretty interesting, because
go and get the movie back, and while you are talking,
okay,
if you want to
please.
and then I'll show you how it works.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is this concept of actually saving time in the procedures, and trying not only to predict something, but also trying to make the things faster, and so trying to there's one big discussion in artificial intelligence in medicine, which is will artificial intelligence allow us to spend more time with the patients and try to speed up some of the processes that make us waste a lot of time usually? This is the big question mark. We hope so, and we are very convinced that that will be the case. But then we must actually see if the reality is the same in the same gives the same sign. I would say. What is your feeling?
I agree with you. I think Aurelio just gave an excellent example of this. I think in the intensive care, we're still not there yet. It's still taking a while. But it's also true that if you have an algorithm that predicts that one of your patients is going to get very sick, then you can prevent, let's say, or maybe take some measures to prevent a cardiac arrest or a downfall of that patient. So that will ultimately give you time, because when one of your patients gets very sick and he's already had a cardiac arrest or something, then you will have to spend a lot of time on that patient. So for sure, if you can predict, it's like preventive medicine. If you can predict it, then in some way it will save you time, I believe. I think we'll try it out, but if it works, then it could be a big success.
Let me make another bad question, because actually artificial intelligence is always like this. One of the big challenge also in the routine clinical care is working with the electronic health record. And there are a lot of stories about the time wasted in trying to copy and paste information, or trying to meeting the requirements of the electronic health record for doing everything as it is for this kind of template. Do you think there's room for actually speeding up the process and simplifying that process with artificial intelligence, and again letting physicians and healthcare personnel, healthcare workers, save time in the process of recording information? And can you make a couple of examples?
Well, I think that this could be useful, especially in the research field. What we're doing, and I hope, again, this is also an initial project, we're trying to monitor delirium in the intensive care unit, because that's also something that our patients tend to have quite often. And so we're trying to set up our electronic system so that it basically, we've inserted the scale inside our electronic system, and so directly we're trying to, once we have our scales, once the nurse evaluates the patient, gives us the number, then we are trying to get an Excel spreadsheet so that we can put all the drugs inside. And then at this point, we will have a lot of patients monitored for delirium in 1 year. And that's how we're trying to use research, trying to use our electronic data to use it for research basis. So I think research definitely also has an important role in this, especially in the electronic, let's say, electronic charts. And hopefully we won't have to do what we used to do manually, go back, look at the charts when you used to be in the library and look through your drugs and then manually calculate. Hopefully that period is gone.
No, I was trying to make you tell something bad about the electronic health records, but I'm not succeeding.
I'm actually a fan of it, because I have to say that we used, we've been using electronic chart for, I think it's 2 or 3 years now. Before, we used to spend our nights basically copying therapies. And then since we have the JCI here, we also have to sign each therapy twice. And so ever since we have the electronic system, we have much more time to concentrate on our patients.
Absolutely. And that's exactly one of the points. And I think that intensive care is one of the models for understanding how important might be having a process which is simple, straightforward, and electronic. I think this is one of the values. Go back to Aurelio. And what about your movie? Is that working? Is that okay? That's fine. But I know that you have several examples of applications of artificial intelligence in diagnostic images. You showed a couple of examples for getting simple things, but I think that we may scale up and also think of application of AI that again may make much more fascinating and possibly important results.
Absolutely. So the other, very interesting bit is a sort of a deep learning application of a multi-parametric information. So the radiomics. This is actually the definition of radiomics. Is so we have a lots of images, also retrospective data that we can use, and we can actually and analyze. So we can say this is mainly oncological aspects. So we can analyze and segment tumors and mathematically extract data from the image dishomogeneities and texture analysis, and extract mathematical information, histograms. I don't want to go into the details. Some of the mathematical are not from my background, so I may commit mistakes. But basically, you're able to extract some computer data that can be used and analyzed and compared and collected and compared with the other omics data like genomics and phenotypes, other phenotypes, and history of the patient. So if you're able to, and we're doing this in some of the cases, some of the colleagues from the neuroradiology done this with the MRI scanner, some of the gliomas, and there are some mathematical analysis like kurtosis, which is not just the simple process of analysis but of data, but give additional mathematical elements to increase the strength of your data. And I think this is one of the most interesting applications into the oncology world. What are we doing now is we segmented some. The problem into the pediatrics is the number of the cases. It's the same issues in the intensive care unit. And although you feel that you're working with never ending, I mean the amount of work is enormous. Yet the numbers at the end are still limited to do this. So then we are in the process of collecting our data and possibly to offer it to the community and to see whether there are other centers available to collaborate. And some of the tumors, solid tumors, are especially very, very interesting. And I think the comparison with the clinical outcome and data and histopathological patterns and genomics is the most interesting bit. I don't know if you have. I'm sure that you have comment about this because you are an expert as well.
Well, no, one of the comments is, do you feel like sooner or later we will use diagnostic images in the place of biopsies or invasive procedures? Because this is one of the possible challenges.
Okay, yeah, it is possible. I think some of the something is still there, and we are using this multi-parametric approach. I think MR, from this point of view, is very productive tool, and some of the cases of, I don't know, and we are basically now able to compare all the information, all the signals, putting together T1, T2 from the MR aspect, and produce some synthetic data as well. And I think this is very important from this point of view. We will be able to replace some of the biopsies. I think also the liver can be replaced. Although the liver is a very common to do liver biopsy, so it will still take time. But from this point of view, for example, the heart came before because it's very you want to avoid as much as possible to do a biopsy on the heart in a patient, small patient, especially because it's a very high risk procedure at the same time. So we have very good results. The difficulties again is to collect all the data and to be able to prove this and to make it systematically reproducible. That's the challenge, and we know.
Yeah, one of the other things that I think is very important is thinking of the potential of artificial intelligence techniques for classifying diseases, because usually we tend to simplify things, and actually medicine is very complex, and I always think that we are trying to discover something that will be really challenging for a lot of time, because we just understood a small part of the whole process. And this is true for different diseases. For example, I always make the example of classification of diseases like diabetes. For example, I studied in the old years that diabetes type 2 was one disease. It's not true. It's at least 5. And this means that classifying diseases, integrating different information, is discovering different physiopathologic processes and possibly addressing new therapies, because actually not the same disease may require different therapeutic approaches. This is something that I feel like will be very important. And this also makes me think of the importance of connection between different disciplines, because this is one of the other things that we always discuss. We are very actually used to connect people of different specialties in the hospital, because we tend to support interdisciplinarity when we discuss complex cases and other things. Can you make some examples of what happens in the intensive care unit? Because you know, cardiology, intensive care, radiology, and other things. What is the significance of artificial intelligence in making a glue between different disciplines?
Well, I think that for sure, where I work, it's a multidisciplinary. We know because there's a cardiac surgeon, there's always a cardiologist, and there's an anesthesiologist that make decisions on the patients. And in this sense, Aurelio and his team have an important, very important role. I think that, for example, they've developed, when we did the Siamese twins, they developed, I think Aurelio can speak more about this, but that was about when you did the Siamese twins, that was really interdisciplinary. There were all the teams of the hospital there. So I think that's one of the examples how artificial intelligence, because from what I saw, you created a model that helped the surgeons to perform the surgery. And there were many surgeons and many disciplines there. So I think that's a clear example of artificial intelligence. In our daily practice, I think basically they have a very important role for us. We do a lot of MRI scans. We used to do many more biopsies. We do many less biopsies. I think there's still maybe room for improvement, because hopefully artificial intelligence will increase the scans will be faster. I mean, I don't know if you can agree. That's
good topic actually. No, we were just discussing that basically all the images we got. This is very interesting. Based on already on a mathematical process of extraction. So we have raw data, and then there's a mathematical process which is sometimes very long. It's a complex matrix of data that is going into and translate into an image. So it's computer based, and so whatever is computer based, if you start from the raw data, you actually will be able to and you apply those algorithms before the images, you will be able to get the images probably faster with more information inside. So the actual process is an old process. If you apply this, this is a very future thing, but there are other more advanced applications. But this is a work in progress that will probably very interesting from this point of view, because we will be able to make, especially MR, we'll be able to show the scan time and getting the similar information or additional information. And possibly from the CT point of view, the scan time is not an issue, but the radiation is an issue. So you will probably be able to reduce the amount of radiation. So this is very interesting what you said.
Did I understand correctly that actually AI may be also useful in saving exposure to radiation? Because actually extracting more information from an image might be useful to reduce radiation exposure.
I mean, the raw data, as I said, is something we don't know, because it's something that is coming from the vendors. So it is a mathematical process we don't really know, and but I don't want to say that it's still there, and we can, but there's for sure there is a way to investigate whether we can extract more data, make it faster, and possibly that will translate into a shorter scan time, and who knows, from the CT point of view, into less radiation exposure. But this is, of course, needs to go through a long validation process, and I'm sure that the vendors are very interested in make it work, because otherwise it will be very risky. There are some, and I will show you a picture later. You know the pictures. There is some legal issue at the end that we have to take into consideration. So who takes responsibility of this? of this. And so they think that the process of validation will be longer. That actually is the mathematical way to abstract this data.
That's fine. Do you have the movie going?
No, the movie, no. I want to show you this one. This is the one. No, I've been. No, I thought it was translated. What the English one? I've been. How do you say it in English? I've been sued for a misdiagnosis. So the machine is asking, "Oh, dear buddy, this is just work." so is the machine taking the responsibility of a misdiagnosis? Who knows? So that I think there's as we said, I think the augmented intelligence is what is the key thing. So there's the place probably where the machines are meeting with the humans to making the decision and to collaborate together. So I think it's actually what we said so far, and to increase and to optimize our workflow. Those are the radiological. So the AI medical imaging from the Erasmus Medical Centers, the European Society of Radiology. So you have all what we just said. So the genomics, radiomics, together with big data analysis. So you need a lot of data mining. So extracting data with different tools. And the imaging data, non-imaging data, so that what is coming from the clinical lab and the raw data as well. And I think so. I want to. I mean, my personal that I want to share with you this one. This is a book from managers. You know, big managers are reading these books that are inspiring. You know, and this is a give and take. It's very inspirational because it's saying, okay, basically, it's based off success. Sometimes it's a give you, and then you take back. So that's it's another point of view. And this they mentioned this RSNA, so this Radiological Society of North America, this work that was saying that the results of reports on picking up diagnosis were more efficient if you put a picture of the patient just beside your reporting system. So while you're reporting, you see the face of the patient. So they proved, I don't know why, scientifically, that it was increasing your power, diagnostic power. So I think there's still space for that. So the H2H is still important. So the machine are of course a very useful too, but I think radiology is first in place that are not very clinical has to become more interactive with the colleagues and with the patient and taking advantage of the tools rather than be fighting with the machine.
Possibly. We all want this, absolutely. Well, since you touched one of the delicate issues, which is legal problems, responsibility, and so on, let's ask Francesca, how do you feel about the legal responsibility? So the big problem and the big discussion is, can we trust in automatic methods that actually do something in our place? This is the big questions all the times. And what is the role of validation in this kind of processes? And can we validate everything? Because technology is going faster and faster. And I'm not sure that all the classical research approaches might be useful to validate everything. What do you think?
Well, I think that first of all, as clinicians, we need to, yes, use these tools to help us. But I think we should not lose our clinical eye on the patient, first of all. So, and I think, yes, validation is important, like we said, always on big numbers of patients, so that then legally we can protect ourselves. Because if we don't validate anything, then we can't protect ourselves. So again, I think that's a collaboration. I think, again, as clinicians, we need to use these tools to help us, but at the same time, like you said, put the patient's face, but not forget to look at our patients at the same time. So not depend only on machines, because that's one of the pitfalls of artificial intelligence. And that happens, I mean, we see it with a simple saturation. Sometimes you just look at the saturation, you forget to look at your patients. So, I mean, that's a small example of technology. So I think that's the how you can protect yourself by still being a good clinician, and then just using these tools to aid you on your research, on your collecting data, getting faster, but not to lose your clinical capacities.
That one of the things that we always imagine in intensive care unit environment is having systems that actually gives alert signals pretty in advance compared to the human feeling, I would say. You know, you always see doctors or nurses looking at old monitors and actually trying to make a picture and integrating all the things together to get the real scenario of what's going on and so on. This is one of the things that possibly can be managed by artificial intelligence for giving to automation some of the things that might be sped up and actually could make people, healthcare workers, saving time. Is that true, or is this something that is not real yet? So do you feel like there's a possibility in doing that really?
I don't think it's real yet in the clinical practice every day. I mean, it would be great if, you know, you're extremely busy and, I don't know, you have an app on your phone that says, oh, patient number 6 is going downhill. Go take a look. I think, so there's no harm in that because it says, go take a look at your patient. So I think maybe, I think we're far away from that. It might be able to be developed by collecting, again, lots of information, lots of data. And the problem also in pediatrics, like you said, is the numbers are small. So before you can validate some predictive algorithm, you need many, many numbers. And so like Aurelio said, you feel like you're always working, but then when you go and you look at your data, you say, what, I only have 20 patients that are, and what, I've been working for all these years. So that's also a big problem in pediatrics.
Well, this is again one of the problems because we feel like there are incredible opportunities, but actually going there means that we have to work a lot, and that's one of the things that we must be considering all the times, because we're dreaming, but actually we should also think of the real world. Absolutely. No, thank you. But actually, this is interesting because all the times radiologists say, well, we can try to automate some of the processes. You know that, for example, pigeons are extremely well in reading mammographies.
There was a paper. One of the first paper was actually I remember the story. There's a pigeon was looking at the histopathological patterns of some breast cancers, and it was able to pick it up better than the
feed the pigeon.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than actually birds have a better retina than us, so they have a better. They discriminate much more details in terms of the IC, and they have. This is the reason, and this is actually the reason why artificial intelligence started. So radiomics is based on this principle. So you're able to picking up details much more. So the machine is able to picking up details much more, much better than a human eye. So that's absolutely the truth. And I think this is a great opportunity in terms of biopsy or like better diagnosis for cancer, for example, better tissue characterization. Okay.
Because actually, one of the things that we already think about radiologists. Well, let's think of AI applications that, for example, can screen chest RX, for example. And so let's concentrate and focus on complex cases and leave to AI the possibility of screening them. Is that real?
I mean, we are in a pediatric setting, so I didn't mention. I have probably some slides about the this is going on. Is nearly a reality in the mammography. I think the tool for screening in mammography is already there. It's because the ability to discriminate because the mammography is a very standardized process, or recognize specific patterns of abnormalities, calcification, and so on related to the mammary tissue, and the artificial intelligence is much more reproducible and reliable in recognizing these patterns, which are very, very characteristic and you can code them very easily. Yeah? So what is the radiology work? And I think this is very interesting from a screening point of view, as you said. So you have many mammograms, and then you give it to the machine. Okay, there will be screening, and then you will be just checking all the time. Okay, this is fine, this is fine. You have to just double check what this machine is doing.
Well, this is one of the things, but the general feeling, I already told that, and we discussed that a lot of times. People are very scared about automation because they think that we will be facing de-skilling. So if the machine is doing a lot of work, actually, we will not be able anymore to train us on the job during clinical routine. And we may be facing problems because we will not be looking at the same things again and be surprised by some findings. Do you feel this is a problem or that this might be an issue?
I do. I think that it can be a problem, especially for clinicians, that some things will always have to be done by humans. I mean, you will have to always speak to the parents. You will always have to cannulate a vein. I mean, I don't think, unless you have a robot doing it, but still at the same time, I think that you have to be very careful. I mean, I see it in our central lines. For example, we use ultrasound in our central lines always. When I started, we used to use our hands and, feel the muscle and things. I can't do that anymore. So, yes, I've become better with my ultrasound skills, and I also have less complications. We all have less complications. So I think you have to balance it out. So not rely too much on technology, but use the technology in your favor.
Is that real also for radiology?
Yeah, absolutely. So is difficult to absolutely. So the topic what you're saying is mainly the skilling. So I think, for example, the contouring I showed. This is a long process of learning how to do it. For example, not just the bone expert, but the other thing is, for example, is part of the fellow job. So you can say that your new fellow is the machine, and what's gonna learn the fellow then. So it's an issue, but I think that we can, for sure. In the process of training, you will have to stop this. Okay, you have to learn first, and then you will be able to use. Once you learn, you will be able. So that I think is a task for the mentors to be careful in the use and to spread these tools. The problem is when the companies are selling these tools, so then anybody can buy it, and then you won't be able to double check anybody in the rest of the world. So that is an issue. Although I think that if the validation process is well done and the machine learning process is reproducible, the mistake you can get from these tools is still limited. So it's up to the training is important, but I think this if the tool works, you can and is reliable, you still have you have something that you can use.
And just a small note, I think that even though you indirectly de-skill, you're also learning new skills while you're using the machines.
I agree.
So that is also a training process.
Absolutely. I don't know, what is your feeling when, if you ever had this experience to stay in a driverless car, for example, and what would be the feeling, because actually one of the things that may be happening in a few years will be having aircrafts without pilots. What about that? Because this is something that challenges you, but it's something exactly in the same direction that we're trying to explore with artificial intelligence.
I think I'm a little bit scared of that, but at the same time, I think it also gives me confidence because I'm not always sure of the pilot that's driving the airplane.
No, well, I'm joking, but no, well, I think that one of the points will be trying to get as many data as possible, because otherwise systems cannot learn what is the real world, and this is one of the big challenges. So let me touch a couple of a few things in the very last part of our talk. One is, again, okay, do you feel we have still barriers in getting appropriate data? We already said that we need big data. We need to set multi-centric collaborations for pulling together different experiences. The scale is much higher than we think most of the times. But speaking of a hospital, which kind of infrastructure would you need? Is there anything that you would dream about for having more data? Let's try to push the boundaries toward that.
I think that I would like an automated system that basically pulls out my data and puts it directly on the Excel spreadsheet and gives me a statistical analysis.
You're in love with the Excel, I would say. This is
Well,
not an artificial intelligence.
No, I know, but I mean, I would like something that it goes automatically, or that I just have my result there. That's the dream, I think, of any clinician, to input, output.
But for example, what's happening with your monitors? You have for example, 10 to 20
That's all
monitors.
lost data. We know that. That's lost data.
It's a pity?
It's
Or
a very,
it's
it's a big pity.
And this
So,
is something
yeah.
that we possibly
We're
want to
trying
try
to-
to get on board. Because actually losing data means just having a look when you want, but that's it.
And you lose the moment.
Okay. And what about radiology? You're much more advanced, I would say, because infrastructures for diagnostic images are pretty good. But there's anything that can be improved in that?
Absolutely. The thing that I think data managers or people who are able to work with data, like Gianmarco, for example, so the data scientist, I think the person they have, I mean, to do what we want, they should be more and more present and involved into the clinical. They have to come down sometimes, because they don't they stay in their virtual world of numbers everywhere, or spreadsheet, data sheet, and they don't know what's reality. And I think is a big issue, because we've been fighting for structured report, for example, which is now is number, variables, drop menu, and things like that. And it's been very hard to set up, for example, the cardiac structured report, which is a lot of numbers and data information that you want to collect. And once you have the structured report, you're able to do this analytics. But it's been a very fight with the IT person to make them understand what we want. So it's I think we should have the data, the scientists with us together. So coming down and not working with us, of course, but being available, and not just in their office somewhere, and you don't know who they are and so on.
And that was exactly my last point. Actually, we started working directly with the world of data science that usually is outside the hospital. And the very first months that actually data scientists came to the hospital to start working with us, I said, okay, you should come with me in the ward and see what happens in a real clinic. Yeah. Otherwise, you can't understand how to get data. But actually, this also raise another point, which is we are going toward a system in which data science will be part of the clinical work, and we need different profiles, different professionals working together with us, and maybe we should change our mind about our educational background. Medical education might be considering to be changed because things are changing so fast. What is your feeling about that?
Well, I think definitely the medical education is a bit ancient, because you still have to learn. I mean, I don't know what it is nowadays. I think that maybe it is advancing and we don't know. But I do think that it is overall structured, because you still have to learn the anatomy the way you learned it. I mean, even though I think that the new generation probably relies much more on apps, relies on Google, relies on and so they probably have more access to technology than we did at the time, and they probably know how to use it better than we do. So I do think that the medical education has to modernize itself.
Your comment about education?
Oh, I agree, completely agree with Francesca. There's a big jump. So we made a big jump. So there's a completely different approach. And I think now we have knowledge is more and more available than it was before, and then the way to teach and to involve people should be slightly different. And I think new generation, they basically they have the process of being involved that is, of course, there are is more advanced. Let's say that, but and I think, and I see that some of the colleagues, the young colleagues, are more prone to new technologies, and I think this is coming. Of course, there's a teaching issues, so the university has to change their approach, but there is a sort of automatic process to to improve and learn based on the big change that has been made with these tools and with the advances.
Okay, with this, I think we're done. But actually, I must tell you that these two guys actually are among the most active doctors in the hospital. About things about artificial intelligence are going on because of people like them, and we're trying to also collaborate with other people outside the hospital. I'm not sure if there's any question. Possibly yes. But you should come here. We have time for just one question. I know that you're burning for that, so you're very welcome to challenge our.
No, that's not challenge.
You need a mic.
Yes, thank you. Not so much challenge as to participate in this interesting discussion with one consideration. Good morning to all of you. I'm a neuroradiologist, which is working mostly in research in this hospital. I had the opportunity to know Dr. Sechinaro, of course. And I wanted to make two brief considerations more than two questions. The first, that I spoke with many data scientists, and our fear, which was also one fear of mine, that one day we can get replaced by artificial intelligence, is irrevocably not true, because computer, they say, it is not something that I am saying, are definitely stupid. Okay? Stupid in the sense that they have a logical feeling, they are fed with logic, they don't have intuition, they don't make choices.
Yeah.
This is what I told this data scientist, and he told me, no, don't worry, it is a far cry away. It is a very far cry away. He told me about 50 years or so, which is contrary to what I thought. First of all, and the second thing, which is crucial, absolutely crucial in this project, in order to fulfill the dream that we all have. Oh, don't worry, I'll go back and in the rear view. To fulfill our dream about artificial intelligence, whatever that is, and artificial intelligence is very advanced statistics at its base, okay? To fulfill this dream, we must be sure that what goes into those systems, the quality of data, that is absolutely crucial, because what goes in will go out. For example, the X-ray, the bone system, the ray expert, does it never get it wrong? It does get it wrong, and the fact is that the reason why we are doctors is because we make decisions in difficult environments. This is something that artificial intelligence cannot and should not take away from us. Okay? This is a crucial part, and this is also even more important, because when we are going to interact with this data scientist in this environment, which is going to change our world, okay, it is important that we maintain the decisional aspect, because computers cannot make this choice for us, and we have more knowledge than data scientists in order to decide. Many data scientists actually ask us to interactively participate because they are well aware of this subject, okay? And the quality of data is crucial. It is not so much the quantity of data. We have data on 10 patients, never mind. 3 patients, 2 patients, okay, we'll do it what we can, but it is important that all the patients have all the same data, that they have all the same data, and the decision part, the medical decision part, at least from what they told me, it is something that I'm sharing with you because they told me like 2 days ago, will not go away from us, and should not go away. This is important when we will interact with those data scientists, which will happen more and more in the following years from all of you if it is not already on the place, okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much for these considerations. Actually, big data, data quality, the human role, I think these 3 things must be kept into account, absolutely. And I think that was a very nice talk, because we touched a lot of interesting points that also very delicate points that would deserve much more time to be discussed. But this is just the first time. I invite you to consider to attend these two important conferences. One will be AI Med in London. It will be in September. The second one will be Shaping the Future of Pediatrics, which will be in Rome in October. In this conference, there will be a session about artificial intelligence. With this, thank you so much for attending. And for the persons attending in person, there will be a coffee break outside. Thank you so much.